What's up, guys? So this is the first video I'm shooting in my new home office, well, for this channel, right? For my main channel, I've already shot a video and introduced people to it. Black Sun Boxing, it's my martial arts training stuff. That is my profession. That is my main occupation in life. But the whole purpose I started this channel was to explore the other interests that I have, which happen to be kind of in the realm of arts and philosophy, arts in the broadest sense of the term. So when we moved, my wife and I had to move. So when we moved, we found a place that actually had enough room to give me a home office. And so now I kind of have my own space to do some work and even do some filming, right? And I've got my music stuff over here off camera, and I got some nerd stuff over here, my nice filing cabinet, and I've got my computer, and I got my martial arts stuff. And it gives me a chance to just have my own space as opposed to camping out in the living room or whatever. All right, so the main thing I wanted to talk about, and this came up mainly because of Kevin Smith's new He-Man series that's coming to Netflix at the end of the month. And one of the things that popped up recently is a little bit of race swapping that happened. And while it is not the most egregious form of race swapping that we've seen in popular media, especially in recent years, it's notable nonetheless. And so, as you can tell, I am a massive He-Man fan. Even my 2014 Infinite Soldetti cosplay was largely modeled, not exclusively, but largely modeled after He-Man. And so because of that, right, I pay attention because He-Man is my hero, has been forever. I grew up on He-Man. I was literally born the year the toys hit the shelves, right? The cartoon hit the year after. So, He-Man's important to me. So I've been paying attention to the news on the upcoming show. And of course, as soon as you get Kevin Smith involved in anything, right, he has become a massive corporate shill. And that's really unfortunate, right? Because he started off as this indie guy that was doing this kind of cool niche indie stuff. Crude as it may be, it was cool and fun. And as he has kind of worked his way into the mainstream, he has lost his teeth, it seems. And I'm not going to sit here and bash on Kevin. He's lost a lot of shine for me, is all it is. So let's just say I've been skeptical about the upcoming show, and the press releases and the trailers we've gotten so far have kind of only bolstered my skepticism. They haven't really done anything, to push that skepticism off any. And so let's talk about what diversity kind of is and isn't, the good and bad of it. I want to try to keep this short. You know that I can't say anything quickly, but I'm going to try, okay? So what is diversity, right? So diversity really just means that there is a wide range of whatever the unit that we're talking or units that we're talking about are, right? If there are multiple styles of something, or if there are multiple origins of something, or whatever, right, that a large swath of them are represented. And that brings in the whole representation argument, which, look, Aiden Paladin has a fantastic video on representation. Go watch her video. I'll link it down below if I remember. But let's just say representation on from the scientific evidence that we have right now doesn't matter as much as people are saying it does. Not that it is bad, not that it isn't necessarily important, but that it just doesn't seem to be as important as people are making it out to be. Now, when people say diversity, right, as opposed to what diversity really means, when people say diversity, right now, because of the socio-political bickering that's been happening across a lot of the globe, it's not just in the US, one of the big things that we are seeing is that people say diversity, and what they really mean is minimize people of a certain race and expand people of another race. That's not really how diversity works. And so really what they end up calling for is affirmative action, just fictional affirmative action per se. So by race swapping, gender swapping, sexuality swapping, whatever swapping characters, what they are doing is, instead of creating new characters for populations they wish to reach, what they are doing is taking old characters and basically shunting off the fans and trying to reach new fans with that. Multiple people have talked about how that is very, very lazy writing, how that is lazy storytelling in general, and how it's actually not helpful, and if anything, it's kind of harmful, because all that does is create kind of a new level of tokenism, right? If you really want to hear about tokenism and sloppy seconds and hand-me-downs, go listen to Eric July talk about this stuff, because he is absolutely livid about this across multiple genres. He mentioned the He-Man thing, but his domain is more in traditional comics, and he is not happy about this kind of stuff either. And so when we start looking at this stuff, what are we really talking about, right? What we're really talking about is that if we feel, and I say we in the most general sense, right? You know that I am not a collectivist. I'm extremely individualistic. But if we as a culture, if we as a society, as humanity, whatever, if we as creatives feel like we should have a more diverse cast of characters, then we should create a more diverse cast of characters. But what we don't want to do is just shoehorn them in. So I want to bring up something that J. Michael Straczynski talked about in his recent writing book. Now, I'm not a writer, my wife is. So I like to read these books just so I can be more intelligent in conversation with her, right? Hey, I still got to impress my wife. But the fact is that I'm interested in the craft of storytelling, even if I'm not a writer, right? I have been involved in role-playing games and other creative endeavors. Anyway, in this book, Straczynski mentioned how, when you're talking about building characters and building relationships and whatnot, you might want to start with so he gave the example of pick a set of cross streets in New York. Now this is a real place with established cultural centers and history. So that makes your job a little bit easier, as opposed to, say, writing science fiction and fantasy, where you have to create these things from the ground up. But the rules still apply, because even in fictional settings, the worlds have to feel lived in, and you have to be considering cultural populations, immigration, commerce, trade, traffic, things like that. And when we look at this, what Straczynski says is that if you take the set of cross streets, it's going to tell you, right, these two cross streets bump up against this district, that district, these cultural centers, right? It's just a couple of blocks away from this. So it starts giving you an idea. Now, New York is an extremely diverse city, right? So you can literally bump into anyone from anywhere, right? But as far as kind of the main characters, the characters you're going to follow and the characters that kind of live in that space or work in that space are probably going to be part of the major cultural centers, unless you're doing a fish out of water story, right? And so you have the characters being informed by the setting that they're in. Now that's a really important concept, right? Because what you're not doing is you're not creating diversity through some form of affirmative action, right? What you're doing is that you are telling kind of a lived-in story that happens to have a diverse set of characters because of the situation they're in, right? Speaking of Straczynski, right, think about Babylon 5. Right? Babylon 5 is an extremely diverse show, and it doesn't really ever feel shoehorned, right? And a lot of that is because you're talking about a space station that is a hub for, all these races of aliens, intersecting with one another. and interacting with each other's cultures and food and things. And there's a lot of stuff that he explores in there. And because it's in the future, right, you end up with people from a diverse array of actual human ethnic origins, because Earth is now kind of a unified planetary government, which means that, like the British Empire, you're going to have people of all kinds throughout. I understand that the British Empire is maybe perhaps problematic. I'm not arguing that. But you get what I'm saying, right? Britain is an extremely diverse place because of the empire. New York is an incredibly diverse place because of immigration. And Babylon 5 is an incredibly diverse place because of commerce and diplomacy. These kind of things kind of lend themselves to an uber diverse cast of characters and a massive diversity of scenarios and situations, which is really, really, really cool, and it never feels forced, right? Whereas, let's pick Thor, the first Thor movie with Chris Hemsworth, right? Not the appearance of Thor in The Incredible Hulk years and years and years ago. When they did the first Thor movie, Thor's entourage, right? They included an Asian guy. They also included, Idris Elba as Heimdall, and yet you don't really see people who look Asian and black in Asgard. They kind of stand out, like they didn't really think about what's the population of Asgard. You could make a case for an incredibly diverse Asgard, right? It's a fictional place that has who knows what going on, except the majority of it looks like fantasy Viking land, and then you have these couple of shoehorned in racial characters. You just go, well, that doesn't work. And I love Idris Elba. He's a good actor. He seems like a really cool human being, but and it's not even that he acted the part poorly, right? For what he was given, he acted it really well. But you're just sitting here going but where are the other Black Asgardians, right? Why aren't there more? Because now it doesn't feel like a lived-in place. It feels like a place that had somebody shoehorned in, right? It feels like a place that was like, we need to check a token box for affirmative action. That is the problem, right? And if you want to listen to somebody talk about the problems with this stuff, go check out Eric July. He is just livid about all of this race swapping because it's lazy, right? Because there are so many stories that you can tell. If you want to write a story with a certain ethnic group or a certain sexual preference or gender identity or whatever, go ahead and tell that story. Just create a brand new story, right? And here's the thing that we keep on hearing, right? And this one goes back to the He-Man comment, right? The producer that was talking about race swapping King Grayskull, right? He or she, I didn't check, said very specifically that, right, if they created a new character, nobody would know about them, nobody would care about them. So you take a character that people know and care about, and you change them so that they're represented well, and you just go, no, that kind of creates the opposite effect. That actually creates a bit of contempt, because now people are just being lazily given, a hand-me-down. They're not being given something that is a genuine creation that is trying to be, representative or speaking to or whatever. And so that's the major problem, right? You can have a massively, massively diverse cast or a very small diversity of cast members, and it'd be a fantastic story, and the diversity works, and it happens to be just kind of for lack of a better term, it's a set piece, right? And that's the thing, diversity is a set piece, it's not a story. And nobody likes to hear that, but it's true, right? Diversity is a set piece, it's not a story. And when you start just kind of shoehorning stuff in, it doesn't work, it doesn't flow, it doesn't fit the story, right? And more than anything, that is the biggest offense here, is that it's lazy storytelling. It's not honest, it's not authentic. It's literally just, let's throw people some crumbs to pacify them so we can keep on going. Meanwhile, they alienate the previous fans because they changed the character. Fans don't react well to change, right? Most people don't react well to change. Fans don't react well to change. When a character changes, they tend to not like it. And that can be minor changes like a haircut or a color swap on the costume, or they do a face heel flip like in pro wrestling or something, and fans will revolt over that. So when you absolutely just change the character from the ground up, the fans go, this isn't even the same character, right? And that's a whole different can of worms that has been opened then, that now you're just going, take the crumbs, take the crumbs, take the crumbs. That sounds way more racist than writing an authentic story that happens to not be that diverse. So, we just come back to, was it Walter Reed Williams, that said, thank God I got my education before the white liberal cared about black people. I believe it was Walter Williams that said that. It's just, liberal's not even the right term anymore, right? They're not liberals anymore. Liberals are actually reasonable people. Even if you have a difference of opinion. No, these people are so far beyond that, I don't even know. So anyway, right, if you're a storyteller, whether you're making games or writing books or comics or script writing, whatever, right, write your story, right? Don't try to guess the market. Don't try to guess the political attitudes, right? You can never guess what people, what publishers are going to be buying anyway. It's Straczynski's rule of thumb, and he said it in his book, and I heard him say it at a Comic-Con once, right? Most of the time, the stuff that's on the shelves right now is stuff that they were scouting 2 years ago, which means that you're always going to be behind the curve. You can't guess what's going to be in vogue. So your best bet is to write an honest, authentic story based around the characters that make sense in a lived-in world that makes sense. And if it happens to be diverse, if it happens to not be diverse, it doesn't matter, because you're telling an authentic story. It may or may not sell, right? And it may sell in one format and not in another. But the fact is that shoehorning in diversity as kind of a sales tactic or a pacification tactic is actually more insulting than it is helpful. So I'm going to leave you with that, because I feel like I've rambled on long enough and I sound like I'm kind of starting to lose my voice a little bit. So I will talk to you guys later. Good journey.